And that's right under our feet here at the school. Actually, within about 1,000 feet, both northeast to southwest of this site. We'll see it here as we move on. Just a look-down orientation. The star is where we are now at the school. This is a view of Houghton for you that aren't from the area, and general flow line. The next slide is a closer up. The area we're going to focus on here is Guntlock Road, which is the road out in front of the school that runs northeast and southwest, roughly between what's now on this slide called Nananan Road, which is now Pilgrim Road, and the credit union up north at the Sharon. It's a half-mile section, and it's a very interesting and very busy mining area, as you'll see. It's not exactly Chicago's Magnificent Mile, but nevertheless, it's extremely busy. Here it is, a look down today in 2015, again with the school as the key factor. Here's an 1897 shot. The black arrow is that same distance. There were 12 mine shafts on this site by 1900, within a quarter mile of this half mile, roughly. So if you go down to computer mechanics up to the MTU, that's what was going on here in 1900. Here's a little detailed closer map. You can see the iterations. Particular, kind of a little trivial aside, if you look at Huron Town here, there's a left bank and a right bank. The right bank was originally called Perkinville, and you'll notice the lots are smaller. Perkin was the treasurer for the Isle Royale mine in 1900 when the mine was rebuilt, and he didn't see about giving away that much land property to the mines for their houses. So that's just a little interesting aside, but the whole track, we're on a seam of copper as we'll look down from above. If you think this is confusing, all the names of the Isle Royale copper mine used between 1850 and 1930s, these are only partial listing. The stockholders went crazy trying to stay on top of it. Is this mic cutting in and out or what? Let's go take a look underground real quick.
Hey, Bill?
Sir?
Can you go back to that last slide really quick?
Surely.
What is all of this? I mean, I see a lot of different things going on.
These are the mines that Isle Royale absorbed, bought. They bought the Huron mine, which extends further all the way up to Walmart, and down. Thank you very much. The Webster mine was in here. The Frew mine was over on the edge of the hill here towards town. I mean, there's just 1,000,001 properties that they gobbled up throughout the area. Some of them were failed properties they just picked up the leases on, but nevertheless, they took land grabs wherever they could get it. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay, super, thank you. Underground, here's a slice. Again, the H is our high school. Where we are, we're right on top of number 2 shaft, the new number 2 shaft. I'll explain that a little detail later. It's 4,500 deep approximately. If you look at the black and white slide, you'll see we're on the eastern edge of the copper lodes that run parallel to Guntlock Road, and that's why Guntlock Road is there and these mines are here. The green areas of that slide were the areas where the copper rock was. The yellow areas were poor rock that, they didn't want to mine out. Next. Went one too many. Here is a very interesting side of underneath. This is a very wide drift for even this Isle Royale mine. You can see on the top right, you can see in the lower right, you can see the angle at which the copper rock is intrusive into the field rock. About 45 degrees at this point, and that's what they were taking out. Again, you can see the stoping action because they didn't want to mine any of the rock to either the head wall or the foot wall side. They just wanted the rich rock. These would be loaded up down with copper rich rock. they'd be bradished up like this and blocked up. The mine cars would come underneath. Somebody would pull the chute up. They'd let this naturally avalanche down into the mine cars and then take it out the shaft house. Another shot of underground. Lots of times, because of all this mining activity that goes back to before the Civil War, the records were poor, the records were lost. Again, with all these consolidations of mines, the records went off the page. There were cave-ins that became quite frequent. Here's a shot where you can see railroad tracks and everything have fallen into a stope from a former mine. They actually, in a annual report, at one point in time, Isle Royale noted that, in future years, we're going to run into more and more issues with this because we're running into uncharted areas. We have subsidence issues even here today, right around the area. If you know where the credit union is, the orange barrels were behind the credit union 2 summers ago, or was it 3 summers ago? Time goes so fast. In the middle of the winter, the snow melted and it just caved in. Our transfer station here, which is right to the side across the street from the school, is now vacant and closed because the corner of the building has an open hole in the ground that's going down to one of the Isle Royale shafts. The building is not safe. Again, our local Seaman Museum, which happens to be over a good half to 3/4 of a mile, is on a little non-profitable MABS vein. They got a little surprise there that they found the MABS number 3 shaft right at the very corner. If you see where the cement truck is, that shaft, about 80 foot deep, was right at the corner of the foundation. They could have easily lost a piece of equipment in there along with a man. But that was a little unscheduled fault. So these things are still occurring today. Let's look again. By way of background, the street right outside our school, the Perkinville we've talked about, the industry that went on a century ago. Let's look at some of the artifacts of that. Have you seen the water tower over at Sharon and at the top of the of Gutlock here where it turns into Portage? That water tower, there's a small rock structure at the left. Interesting to see so many people we tell this to some of the students here at Houghton High of what this building is. On the next slide, you'll see it was actually the rock center building between the original shaft house of number 1. The next slide, here's the erection of number 1 in 1900. That shaft and number 2, which is just to the other side of the school, were built in the same year. These were the first shafts in the area to use ironwork for superstructures. Heretofore, they'd always used timbering for above ground construction. So American Bridge and Steel, or probably American Bridge and Iron at that point, in Chicago was making lots of bridges for the city of Chicago. They branched out into making steel beams that were used in mining structures in the copper country. And here's one under construction. Here's Gutlock Road when it was just a dirt 2-track, if you will. That's number 2. Gutlock's warehouse is on the left. Way down in the back is the number 1. In the next picture, here's right across the street. Have you all seen this building, Gutlock? Okay, it's not like that. I haven't looked out today, but I don't think there's snow on it yet. But this is a multi-purpose building that's been retasked. If you look at it 100 years ago, under construction, it was a warehouse for Isle Royale Mine. Next. A little trickier when we all can probably discern what this is. It's a rail tie. If we look at the next slide, we'll see where it's at. It's actually coming across the street. If you recognize the front of the building, key on that stop sign as a reference point. Here's a railroad rail coming straight into the high school. On the next slide, here's where it came from. This bus barn today, if you kind of pay little attention to the 6 bays, you see the 6 doorways there, and also the vent pipes on the roof, you'll get a sense of why the railroad tracks come from that barn. In our next slide, again, using the orange H as our high school, There is the barn today, shown in a Sanborn insurance map around 1902. And that was actually a locomotive repair, whatever term is used for a roundhouse that isn't round. But that was for the Isle Royal Railroad service barns. And that's why there's 6 stores. If you'll see in the next slide, again, the doors, the 6 doors, and even the vent stacks, because these trains burnt coal. When they came in, they had to be under steam to get them in and out, so that there was billowing smoke going up in the ceiling. So this is why the exhaust hoods were there. So just an interesting repurposing of the locomotive house. Here is the one to carry supplies, shown with number 2 in the background. And we think about a train, since we say that these rails were relatively short line, where did they go to? On the next slide, you'll see a meander from the high school down to an area that we commonly here call the Sands. It's down on the south side. When you come into Houghton, if you know where the Citgo station, is that now a Chris Oil is, that's where the stamp mill was for Isle Royal. The stamp mill itself was built on the hill there over. You can see what became the Sands and what became home to Superior Block and some other UPS and a few other companies that are down there now. The stamp mills were always built on a hill. They used, gravity, everything rolls downhill. So they would process the copper down. Inside the stamp mill, you used lots and lots of water. You washed the stamped rock and the copper. Here's where copper concentrate of approximately 65% copper would be readied up and sent off to the smelter. If it was less than 65%, it wasn't profitable to smelt and throw away the remaining waste rock. I had breakfast with the former plant manager up there that worked there for like 25 years, and he was very entertaining. Again, here's a recap, the stamp mill. Here's a look down on the Sands area there. You can see that's all protrudes out now in the channel, and this is common around the UP. Here's what it looks like today behind Crest Oil. If you see those remnants up on the hill, that's what's left of the stamp mill. Also down on the waterway, the Isle Royal Mining had their own coal dock where they brought in coal, which they then trained up the hill for all the power steam stations and along the line. They also had their own power plant. This building has been repurposed, and I don't know the use of it today, but it's still, the masons of them were just fantastic, and it's still a very functional building. So that's basically a thumbnail look of modern mining, relatively speaking, that is right under our feet, literally speaking, as we stand here right now. Thank you for your attention. Be happy to answer any questions. Yeah, thank you. The next slide. The close-up of all the.
Yeah.
Okay, I can probably. There we are. The Huron mines started before the Civil War. All right, the blue ones, I mean, the one just caved in last year above Walmart, up this way. The Portage mines were over the hill from the credit union going down the hill, and they were absorbed by Isle Royal. Isle Royal then had 10 shafts in here. They closed those down, and they went back for the diamond. The yellow shapes are their new number 1 and new number 2. They ignored, and that's why they kept falling through all these old structures. And again, there were so many name changes, so many iterations, so many changes in ownership and mine captains that it was just a gamish, if you will. It's with the subsidies around the Korean War time, it's a little difficult. I don't know that answer. Yeah, and they were still going in the 30s after the Depression. They came back a little bit. It was some base, I don't know the final date they finally closed it up, because then it goes to Copper Range, acquired them, and it gets even fuzzier with the owner.